Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next. The kittens are not in this room right now, so unfortunately we will not have cameos, but if you ever want to see an absurd amount of kitten content, come join the Patreon. They are also getting a thematic vlog this week from me, and I'll talk about some of the books I'm going to be, like, that are featured in that vlog, and I'll give my thoughts on them here, where I'm at so far, but, like, so much kitten content and putao content and all of that over there. But I finished two things. I put a book on pause intentionally because I thematically shifted my reading because I was feeling kind of like I needed a focus, a way to self-motivate myself. We'll get to that in the currently reading part of the video. And I don't have anything I'll talk about that I'm reading next. We'll have the TBR next week. So yeah, let's get into it. First with finishing this doorstopper, A Day of Fallen Night. It never did get better for me, unfortunately. I talk about it a lot in last week's video, so if you want to know my thoughts, I will direct you there, or I'll talk about it again in my wrap-up next week, but I finished it. It really wasn't worth it for me. I actually felt a lot of plot parallels between this and Priory, and I know, like, history is cyclical and things like that, but I wasn't, like, a huge fan of some of the parallels, even between, like, the geography of regions and things like that. I still hold that I would like this world, this series, these characters more if, ironically, given more time with them, but over the course of more books so we can actually, like, sit in things. It has this style of narration where you just hop in and out. Like, I'll be with a character in an important moment in their life, and then I won't see them again for, like, I don't know, 9 years? No, I'm kidding, like 9 months. And this is a style that's used in The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, which I love. But that is a 4-book epic. It is very different, and it brings other things to the table that ground it more, like its intense cultural world building. This is obviously a book that's very grounded in our history, but culturally speaking, I find it so surface level. Like, truly, the 4 regions are just cardinal directions. Like, and I don't know, it's not too bad, but like I said, this wasn't for me. I finished it. The best part was there was an interview at the end of the audiobook. So if you had the audiobook, that interview, I enjoyed it. I also finished, and I didn't even tell you guys I was going to read it, but it was for my local book club, and when I was coming back from New York, I'm like, I need to walk for 20 minutes to the subway, so, like, might as well start this audiobook. I just finished, Day for Fallen Night on Friday, and I started Our Wives Under the Sea. It's very short if you haven't seen it around, and I actually did consume that book in that entire day because it was that kind of momentum-driven book. I wouldn't say it's like a favorite. I did like it a whole lot more than her short stories. Her short stories, I think, is one of the few short story collections I've given, like, below a 3-star. Was not a fan. But this I actually think was a really solid lit horror suspense book. What was annoying, and, like, it's my fault, I knew because of reviews and going into it that I would not get answers. I knew, and sometimes I can handle it, but in this case, it wasn't cathartic for me not getting answers. And I know things are like metaphors and we're exploring grief and loss and change, but I just think it was too supernatural or speculative in its nature of horror gothicness that I just needed a tiny bit of resolution in, like, yeah, but what's been happening? Especially because it's this dual point of view, where we have our present day with this one woman whose wife comes back wrong from a deep sea exhibition, and basically she's ruminating on what their life used to be, how they met, how things are like now, how she's coping, not coping, her relationship with her friends. That's, like, the very, like, suspenseful gothic lit fic part of the book. And then we have the other timeline, which is the deep sea exhibition by this woman, and that is very supernatural. What's going on? Like, and I liked both of them actually together, except for the fact that I never, like, one resolved in a way I expected-ish. Got a little weird, but got weird in a way that I'm used to in, like, a lit fic sense of, like, I can accept this. But then the other timeline, I just felt like I needed a tiny bit more catharsis. Like, I just did. Even knowing I wouldn't get any answers, I felt like I was left hanging. So yeah, I don't know how people at book club are going to feel. I don't know how that discussion's going to go. I think it could go pretty well. I think there's a lot to pick apart there. I think people will have very diverging opinions and experiences, so that seems good. So yeah, I basically read that, like, on the train with the audiobook and the physical book, just because, like, it's truly not that long. It's like 3 hours if you listen to it at 2 times speed or something like that, and my train ride was 4. So last week I did talk about that I was reading Theft of Swords, but I put that on pause. I still want to read it. It's going to be on the November TBR, which, we'll talk about next week. But I just really wanted to read haunting Halloween adjacent things, and that wasn't quite it. That's fall. It's very fall for me right now. I am playing The Witcher because of that game, and that's been very fun. But I just wanted stuff that was more aggressively like my version of like Halloween vibes. And so I decided to pivot. I actually even decided to start a thematic vlog, like I said at the top of this video, for my patrons, because I was like, I needed this accountability. And like, I like vlogging, but it can be really stressful, and I think doing it this way is more fun for me. Hopefully fun for them. Well, who knows? This is my first thematic vlog, and hopefully not my last. I think that's a fun thing I'd like to keep doing, especially with the kittens, and there are some life events in the future that I will clue you all into eventually once things feel a little more solid. Some things are very solid, some things I'm like, But anyways, that means that I'm still reading Out There Screaming. I'm about 55% of the way through that. I read a couple stories this week that I talk about in that vlog, and I talk about in the Discord with the buddy read. This is just a very solidly curated collection. I feel like that's a thing most people are saying about it. Or anthology, not collection. Some things are scarier than others, depending on your taste. I'm just happy that I know so many of these authors, so I get really excited when some people have their stories. I will say there was a Nnedi Okorafor in here. And Nnedi Okorafor is very hit or miss for me. I really love remote control noir. I really don't like Lagoon or Binti, that sort of thing. And this was where I think like Nnedi Okorafor shines in mental health observation. And this short story worked so well. Really liked it. Really captured anxiety and grief in a very relatable way to me. So, really good collection. So I'm still, I was like, I need to read a story or 2 of this a day to get it done by Halloween, which is what I wanted to do. So that's happening. And then I had other books on my TBR in October that I'm like, yeah, I really want to read them. I really do. So I started on my commute Monday, Hellbent, and I am currently, let's see, this far. This is the book I have to return to the library, but I'm not physically reading. I just have it here for thumbnails and I don't know, the sense of accomplishment of seeing how far I'm going. But Hellbent is the sequel to Ninth House, which I read in 2020 and liked. I read it in a time when I was very like hazy, tired, anxious. It was lockdown for everyone, but there was also construction on my street and in my apartment, and there was a car beeping outside of Ryan's apartment. There was no escape from noise, and you weren't allowed to go anywhere. But this book was really easy to escape into, and my mental health didn't stop me from being able to read it. So I had no idea how it would feel with other books. I've not read any other Leigh Bardugo, but I liked Ninth House. It wasn't a perfect read. It did some things with some characterization I wasn't a fan of, but I was like, that was a book, and yeah, I would love to know what's happening with this character with that cliffhanger. And then Hellbent came out. It's been a couple years. I was not going to reread Ninth House. I don't like it that much. But I heard really solid reviews, like people who like Ninth House really like Hellbent, that it's like generally just a really solid follow-up. And so I figured I'll give it a shot. It's going to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards. It is mega popular because Leigh Bardugo is insanely popular. And I'm really liking it. This is like very charmed, Buffy adjacent supernatural fiction, if that makes sense. It's like, it's contemporary, urban-ish fantasy, and there's a lot of like, get the team together to do the thing. It just feels cozy? I don't know how to, it's pretty dark. It's very occult, and I think I have learned that I like occult adjacent things as well, or just straight up occult things after reading, Our Share of Night earlier this year. So yeah, this was surprisingly really fun, and it's also really easy to jump back into. I only remember broad strokes of what happened in Ninth House, and I haven't felt like, wait, who's this person, or what are we doing there? It's been really great to just go into it. I've been excited to listen to it on my commute. It's been a very engaging audiobook. So that's been a delight. Absolutely delightful for me. I'm really glad that this project idea I have has pushed me to pick it up, because otherwise I liked Ninth House, but I wasn't itching to get to Hellbent, I just had no desire, but it's been going great. So who knows, I'm like 55, 60% of the way through, so hopefully that keeps up. And then I have My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, which I bought in the end of September, because I had heard about the sequel. And I really wanted to read the sequel, but I wanted to read the first book first. Even though I have heard from reviews you could read the sequel and then read this, because they're timeline-wise spread out about enough. And I am really liking it. I'm only this far in, but I think I have to just recognize that although I don't read it all the time, horror has been hitting for me so much better than other genres this year. Like, it's wild. When I think of my favorite reads of this year, it's in lit fic, it's in horror. I have barely read any new sci-fi. The sci-fi I have read have been backlist and have largely been hits. Fantasy has largely been fine. It's been fine to good. It hasn't really been like hitting, except for like a few standouts. But like horror, like the new horror I've been picking up, those are my highlights. And so this is no exception. I actually do like slasher movies, even though they freak me out. And so I actually know a lot of the movies that they're referencing, even though like I actually am not a huge horror movie fan, but like I know the big ones, and I've actually throughout the years have seen them. We actually just watched Psycho a couple weekends ago, and it's mentioned a fair bit in this because this is kind of, I think, Stephen Graham Jones is like, it's kind of like Scream, where in Scream, you know, you have a character who's like obsessed with horror movies. He's like, no, this is the part where X happens. That's Jade Daniels in this book. So that's really cool. And Jade, I can see why people like her. I mean, I can also see why people don't like her. She is just a character. And I'm really trying to wrap my head around why I like Jade Daniels, but I don't like Spensa from Skyward. Because I think they're very similar chip on your shoulder strong in her monologue characters, but this is third person and Spensa's first. And maybe that's just that extra distance I needed to like Spensa as much as I like Jade. But I really like Jade. And I really like this sense of community. I think Stephen Graham Jones really also writes characters. So I've read Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones, and I think he really writes characters and communities that and make you understand the little intricacies of their life. I just feel really connected to that. Like a premise of this is we're in a community where part of the national park was basically zoned differently so these really, really, really rich people could build their houses on this lake. And so there's a scene I'm kind of in right now where there's a graduation, high school graduation, and these families are finally showed up, and there's contention there. You know, here are these people coming into the community, and they're important because they're providing jobs for building their homes, but they also can see the writing on the wall that this is going to change their community forever and probably maybe even shove them out. So anyways, that's just a conversation that's happening paired with really funny Slasher 101 sections by Jane Daniels. The first chapter is classic opening to a slasher. I was like eating it up. Sometimes there are sentences that I have to reread because Stephen Graham Jones's prose doesn't always click in my head. So yeah, that's where I'm currently at, and in the vlog we'll get my final thoughts and any other tidbits I have along the way with a bunch of kittens. And I think those are my goals for the end of the month. And I'm still enjoying Witcher. We're having our non-spooky marathon on Friday. So we're going to watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, right? That one that came out in the 90s. And I think we might watch Prey. And I think that'll be really fun. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I like, you know, spooky adjacent things. I don't like to be super scared. I don't know. Like, jump scares are really the thing for me. Psychological scares, and, like, once you're past the point of, like, so, for example, in Scream, there's the opening scene. Iconic opening scene with Drew Barrymore. Freaks me out. And then when we do, like, the callback of repeating that when we're, like, in the present day with our main character, I'm like, I don't know if I can finish this movie, but then we kind of get past that gimmick into, like, more of the momentum, and then it's like that after that first drop of a roller coaster, and I can kind of just keep rolling with it and not be scared out of my mind. Anyways, that's a ramble. What are you doing this Halloween weekend? Are you doing anything fun, thematic? Are you already putting up your Christmas tree? What are you doing? If you want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, I don't know, leave a ghosty. Yeah, ghosty emoji. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.